Watch out for the fairy dust. Hi there, welcome to the Bard. Previously, we did a little bit of verse nursing and we looked at your speech or your scene, and we were trying to figure out whether it was in verse or prose and what choice you can make as an actor to help support that. Because that's what this is all about, right? Making good choices as actors, uncovering the clues in the text to help support those choices, make better choices so that you can better tell the story of the character. Now, the story of the play, the story of the character, because Rosencrantz and Guildenstern have a much different story than Hamlet does. So today we're going to be looking at, or at least I'm going to be looking at, Oberon from Midsummer Night's Dream. And we're looking at Act 2, line around 260 or so. I didn't use scene markers because some of the early editions of the play don't have scene markers on them. But we'll be starting with Oberon's speech, which begins, "I pray thee, give it me." And so that's his first line, is "I pray thee, give it me." And if you look at Oberon, this speech is in verse. And in fact, all of Oberon's speeches in Midsummer Night's Dream are in verse. So he is in this heightened state of emotion, this heightened state of reality. What choice can we make to do that? Well, he's a fairy, and he's the king of the fairies, and so he's a magical creature. And so, well, it makes sense that he might be in this heightened state of emotion. And in fact, all of the fairies in Midsummer speak in verse. All of them do, throughout the whole entire play. So anyway, he is speaking in verse, and his first line in that speech says, "I pray thee, give it me." And you go, wait a minute, that's only 6 syllables. I thought there were supposed to be 10. There are. And in fact, if you were to look at Puck in the line right before that, Puck says, "I," there it is. Puck has 4 syllables. Oberon has 6 syllables. Together they make 10 syllables. So between the two of them, they share a line of iambic pentameter, the full 10 syllables. Now that's Shakespeare telling you, Shakespeare the director, telling you to pick up your cue, right? Puck has 4, Oberon has 6, together they make 10. Should be the same pace as the rest of the 10-syllable lines that you've been speaking throughout the play. This is not a time for Oberon to have quiet introspection. This is not an acting moment for the actor to chew up the scenery. It is say your cue and get on with it. And you'll see this throughout Shakespeare's plays, where they have what's called a shared line of verse, and that is Shakespeare telling you quite literally to pick up your cue. Anyway, it continues on. "I pray thee, give it me. I know a bank where the wild thyme blows, where oxlips and nodding violet grows, quite over-canopied with luscious woodbine, with sweet musk roses and with eglantine. There sleeps Titania sometime in the night, lulled in these flowers with dances and delight. And there the snake, with her enameled skin, weed wide enough to wrap a fairy in." Now, if you were paying attention, you might notice that this particular speech is rhyming. So not only is it verse, not only do we have the structure of verse, but we are adding a rhyme to it. This is what's known as a rhyming couplet, A, B, B, and so on. And so we have another structure being put on top of this speech, another set of rules. And so we are becoming speech under even more pressure. So if you were here for your heightened emotion, now you're climbing up that chain of being and you're becoming even more heightened emotion, an even higher state of reality. Because every time we add another layer of rules, another layer of structure, we continue to do that. And so why would Oberon choose to do that? Well, in the speech, he's talking about Titania's bed, right, where she sleeps. And maybe this is a place where Titania and Oberon have been intimate. Maybe this is a place he's never been, right? But those are certainly choices that you, the actor, can make in order to better make acting choices. And then to finish up with, just a few pages later, Oberon says, "What thou seest when thou dost wake, do it for thy true love take. Love and languish for his sake." Wow, that's poetry, that's verse, but that is not our happy da-dum, da-dum, da-dum that we have of iambic pentameter. That is da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. That is very forward. That is a very aggressive meter. And that is what's known as trochaic tetrameter, fancy name just to say that we're using trochees instead of iambs. In other words, da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. And it's a very forceful rhythm. It's another set of rules, another set of structure to go on top of the verse, on top of the rhyme. And what's going on here, you might ask? Well, Oberon is applying the nectar to Titania's eyes, and that nectar is going to cause Titania to fall in love with Bottom. So he's casting a spell. He's activating the magic. And so not only is he speaking in verse, not only is he speaking in rhyme, but he's speaking in this trochaic tetrameter. And when you look at the world of the play, he's casting a spell. So that's pretty high magic. That's going to be an even another higher level of emotional state. And indeed, if you are speaking in trochaic tetrameter, this dudum, 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 take a look around because chances are you might be weaving a magic spell because Shakespeare does use this for magic. The witches in Macbeth speak in this kind of verse. Double, double, boil and trouble. Got a question? Comment? Leave it below.